Welcome to A Pair of Bookends, the book club you can carry anywhere. I'm your host, Hannah MacDonald, and I'm hopefully your new bookish pal. Welcome, Bookends, to a very exciting Christmas special. This year, I am joined by the wonderful Sapphire from Bodega to chat through our favourite reads of 2023, what should be on your 2024 pre-order lists, and we'll be bringing you lots of festive fun along the way. So, Sapphire, welcome to A Pair of Bookends.
Oh, thank you so much. I've literally been in your DMs for months. Like, can I come on? Can I come on? Please invite me.
I've got a more embarrassing story, actually. And it's that I was following Sapphire long before Bodega even existed on my personal account.
I didn't know this.
I'm really like dropping myself in it here. But I went back on our shared activity on, because you can do that, you can see when you follow somebody. So I went back yesterday on my personal account and I was like, I wonder like what year it was that I followed you. And it says on there 2021, but I'm convinced it was before that. And I think I followed you again in 2021. You know, when you want somebody to notice you.
You creep.
I'm such a creep. I was like, what on earth is that? I was like, no, it was before 2021. And then I was like, oh my God, I bet I did that. Like, I bet I was like, oh, I want to be friends.
Well, yeah, I mean, you might have, that's a bit too subtle for me. I wouldn't have noticed.
Yeah, I'm such a loser.
Like, she wants to be my friend.
No, it's really embarrassing.
It's not though, because I'm always trying to make friends on, because some people are like, oh, I met my best friend on Instagram. And I'm like, how are you doing that? Like,
exactly.
How do like, and I am the same person, like in that I'm like the people that I kind of like admire, or I think like, oh, you know, some people are just like, I'd be good friends with them.
Yes.
I think I'll be like popping in there, like replying to their stories, like, ha ha ha. Like,
that's literally what I'm like. Oh, don't, it's so embarrassing. But that is exactly what happened with me. And I think I was following you when you were living abroad.
When I was in Ibiza.
Yeah. I didn't mention the fact that you were living in Ibiza. I knew it was Ibiza, but
well, I just
trying to be more subtle.
It was, to be fair, I've lived in a few places, so I was trying to see how far back we're going here. I could have been like, when I was in Thailand, and I'd be like, you creep, that was like a decade ago.
No, it's Ibiza. It was Ibiza. I basically started following you because you were sharing books all the time. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, how does this girl read so much? And then like I would look at all your book recommendations and like add it to like a wish list, because I felt like we had like similar tastes in some areas, but then you were trying books that like I wouldn't like, I've never tried. So obviously you have Book Bodega now, which we'll get into, but where did your kind of journey start with reading?
I have always loved reading. I mean, I think always, like since I learned to read, because I can remember being like, I was maybe like 10, 11. And I remember we were like, went on one holiday. I think we went to somewhere in France, like a caravan holiday. And it pissed it down for the entire 2 weeks. So we were just stuck in this caravan. And I read the entire Chronicles of Narnia. Like I just sat and read back to back. Like, so I've been reading kind of voraciously since I was young. Like I will just consume everything. And purely because I find it really fun. Like I've always loved being in a book, and that just kind of continued. I'd say it like petered off probably a little bit when I was in secondary school, because you're kind of making friends and starting to go out and do things. I probably was reading a bit less then, but I still always had books. And then I kind of probably got back into my 20s and then started reading to the same level I did when I was young, which is a lot.
Oh my gosh. And who was the authors that you loved when you were younger?
Oh my God, so many different ones. I kind of loved fantasy and magical stuff. I really loved kind of anything that would help me escape. And I think that's quite common in lots of children. Yeah. There's always adventure stories. So anything where something crazy happened, because I'd love to imagine that like I was there and like oh my God. It's just so fun. I don't know how people don't love it. So yeah, I can't remember like specific authors necessarily. And I think just because I was reading so much when I was young, which in some ways is really good. In some ways, probably not great for like remembering stuff. But yeah, I would read pretty much anything I was given. I would read because I just wanted to read loads. when I was reading a lot in like my like early 20s, I was reading loads of kind of like thrillers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Basically, I didn't have that much money and I could only really get books from the charity shops. So I'd go
Yeah.
around and like I'd have like, I don't know, like £4.50, and I'd be like, right, let's see how many books I can get with like £4.50 and
Love that.
in tiny change, like including like 2p's and 1p. And so I'd be kind of at the mercy of whatever people
Whatever
had
would be
chosen
there.
to donate. So that, I mean, that's when I got really into Stephen King, because you could get loads of Stephen King in
I can imagine.
in
Yeah.
charity shops. So yeah, I know it was kind of like I didn't have as much choice, whereas nowadays I can read kind of more of what I want. And
What's
find my
your
taste.
favorite genre now? Do you have a favorite?
I guess just literary fiction.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I love a family saga. I'm really finding that I find those really fascinating, and weirdly really like books about marriages that aren't working.
Oh my gosh, me too.
Right?
Me too. Oh my God. Do you know what as well? I love an affair storyline. Love them.
Yeah. And I've really enjoyed kind of things like like My Dark Vanessa, where it's kind of like
Yes.
the power dynamics, the kind of
Yes.
like, yeah, teachers and what have you.
Yeah.
Like I find that really fascinating. So, but yeah, so much.
Did you read this year? This is just going back to the sort of family sagas and the marriages not working. Did you read Collected Works by Lydia
Yes,
Sandgren?
I loved it.
So good. And it was such a
Huge.
huge book as well, but like I enjoyed all of it. It wasn't like
So good. And do you know what? Like, I don't feel like it's been that highly rated by people. And I
no,
thought
it's
it was
not.
amazing.
Yeah, I thought it was really good as well. So yeah, I'm surprised it's not had more. I mean, I remember Pandora Sykes recommending it, and it's always kind of good if she gives a book the spotlight, because I feel like a lot of people go to her for book recommendations. But yeah, I've not seen it kind of in when I go into shops, I don't see it like
I
straight
think
away. Do you
people
know
are,
what I mean? It's not in
yeah,
the
I think
displays, and
people are like put off by the size of it. I
I think
find the
so.
chunkier a book, a lot of people like in the bookshop, a lot of people will be like, whoa. Whereas I love a big book because I read so quick. So I'm like, oh, this is
Yes.
going to last me a bit
Have you always
longer.
read so quick?
Yeah, people are kind of like, how do you do it? And I'm like, I don't know. I just read the words on the page, which is not very helpful to people. But it's not, I don't do it on purpose. Like
Yeah.
it just is it's just the speed that I read at. But I think it's also just that I carry a book, because so many people are always like, oh, how do you read so much? Like again and again, people ask this question as though there's some kind of like magic trick that I have to like be able to read that much. But I read all the time. Like I'll like my other half will put the telly on and I'll sit on the sofa with a book, and then I'll read when I go up to bed. I always have a book in my bag. So if I get like 5 minutes, like anywhere, I'll be like waiting in the line for a coffee. I'm like book open, like
stop. I love
sneak a few more
that.
pages in. Like I just constantly I'm
So
reading.
good. I really respect that. That's like next level.
Yeah, the one thing I haven't nailed, I have seen people who like can walk and read.
Yes. I'll tell you what, I have tried that once, and that was purely because I was reading on the train and I hadn't finished I think I was like really close to the end of the chapter, and I could see I had like 2 pages left to read, and I was like, well, I can't stop here. Like I need to get to the end of this chapter. And it was like really good. So I was like, right, okay, I'm just gonna walk along the platform like with this book. And that was a bit chaotic, but it was fine.
Yeah, I'm too
I managed
clumsy.
that.
Like I've tried and
I'm clumsy. I don't know why I thought I could do that.
No, I just walked into many things. I was like, okay, this is probably actually quite dangerous. I'm going to stop.
Okay, so you brought up Book Bodega briefly, but I want to talk more about Book Bodega because I love that I got to watch. I mean, because I'm such a creep, I have obviously seen you go through a couple of different career choices, and the Coven, is that what it was called?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That doesn't exist anymore, does it?
No, that closed earlier this year.
And didn't you have like a flower business before that?
Yes.
Or was that ages ago?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out the timeline for this. And now you are a bookshop owner. And I feel like from following you, like not personally on Instagram, I feel like you are the type of person that is just like a proper go-getter. And I have so much respect and time for that, because I feel like some people will say, oh, I really wish that I could do this, this, and this. But you're the kind of person that will just do it. Like, you get an idea and you're like, actually, I'm going to make this work. And we have some more exciting news on the fact that you are like that, but we will come to that later. So how did Book Bodega come about? What was the kind of process for that? Tell us all about that.
It was really, really spontaneous. I mean, I've always wanted a bookshop, but I always imagined, I kind of thought it'd be something I'd do in like another 20, 30 years.
Right.
So yeah, something that you kind of did on your way to maybe like retirement.
Yeah.
That was always what I envisioned, just because I always thought of bookshops as like not very profitable, and yeah, just thought that would be a nice way to do it. And yeah, I mean, literally I was on a walk with my other half, and we walked past a shop in Ramsgate where I live, and it was really beautiful, and it was to let. And I was like, oh my God, I was like, wouldn't that make the most beautiful bookshop? And my other half, who has been a chef in the past, was like, oh, you could sell coffees and we could make like pastries and sandwiches and stuff, and you could have like a bit of everything. And then the way that my brain works is just like, let's do it. So, I mean, literally, I went home, I rung up the estate agents, asked to go and view it, went and viewed it and was like, I love it. And then, yeah, was like, oh my God, could we actually do this? So I went to the bank and was like, how do I get a loan? Like, would you even give me a loan? How does that work? And they were basically like, yeah, you just do it through the app, and then this is the amount you can get.
You just do it through the app, just like that.
I know, it's a bit scary, really, because quite commitment alone. And they're just like, tippity tap, you've got some money.
Crazy.
Very crazy. But all that was fine. I was like, okay. So I put together a list of like startup costs of like how much I thought it would cost. Anyway, that space ended up going.
Right.
The landlord ended up letting it privately to somebody they knew, even though I'd pretty much straight away been like, I want it. But I mean, that actually worked out really well because the location wouldn't have been good. It was a good shop because the inside of it was pretty much, you just needed to put bookshelves in there, really.
Right.
Everything else was sorted. But by this point, I kind of had it in my head that I wanted to do it. And I think it's an autistic thing. I get really obsessed with stuff. Like, once I decide that something's happening, it kind of has to happen. Like, I would be so heartbroken if it didn't. Even it's sometimes a negative because I don't always think things through properly. Or wait to see whether I'm still obsessed with it. Like, in a little bit. So in fact, if you go, we've got like we call it the storage room. It's like a kind of like a laundry room, but it's got loads of crap in there. Essentially, you can see all my past hobbies that I've become obsessed with, and then one day just been like, don't like it anymore, and packed it all away. So that does happen. So yeah, I found another space, literally went in, and I was like, right, I'm not losing this one. So we went in, and I was like to my other half, I was like, have you got any questions? He was like, no, I've asked everything. So I was like, literally turned around to the landlord. I was like, okay, we'll take it. And then I was like, okay, it needed everything. Like, it had no ceiling, no insulation, no anything, no flooring. We had to put a toilet and stuff in. We had to do everything. And I was like, okay, I think we're gonna like try and do it in 6 weeks, because I like had my heart set on like opening on the Jubilee weekend.
Right.
So town's going to be really busy. Like, we need to make the most of it. So yeah, 6 weeks later, I had a bookshop.
You actually did it in 6 weeks?
Uh-huh.
Wow. Oh my gosh. And what's it been like?
Hard. Good. Good, but hard. Look, Ramsgate's not an easy place. So yeah, it's not that profitable a business. I mean, I love it because I love books, so I'm just surrounded by books all day, but it's not taken off as much as I would like, especially not because there's me and my other half doing it.
Right.
So yeah, ideally you need 2 wages worth out of it, but we don't even have 1 wage worth from it. But I love it, and these things do take time. And I mean, you've got like a really small profit margin on books, so it takes a bit longer. You've got to sell a lot, and it's not a great kind of like economy right now, especially for like bricks and mortar stores. But I mean, I'm learning loads, and I love it. I really enjoy it, and it's taught me kind of a lot. And I think with anything, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with it. I don't know whether it'll pick up or whether it won't. Like, who knows, really? But I just feel like life is really short, and you kind of have to, I just think if you want to do something, do it. And I mean, I've failed lots. Like, I've had lots of things that haven't worked out. I've made some really silly mistakes in my career, but I'm kind of okay with that. Like, I think that's part and parcel of like trying stuff. Some things are going to work, some aren't, like, and we're only human. So I'm just kind of the ethos that like, give something a go and see what happens.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, everyone's going to be so inspired. No, I feel like this time of year, like, it's the perfect time to hear advice like that, because you go into the new year and you're like constantly bombarded with the messaging of like you start a new year and like what are you going to try this year, like what are you going to do, what's your New Year's resolutions, like da 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 da. And actually it's okay to fail. Like if you want to try something, give it a try, and if it doesn't work out, like that's life. Like it's
Yeah,
really not the end of the
definitely.
world.
It's not. And you know what? Like the other thing is to kind of balance that is like if you're listening and there's nothing wrong also with just having a 9 to 5, and you might not particularly love the 9 to 5, but it pays the bills.
Yeah.
And you can switch off after work and then you get to do what you want in your own time. I think that's equally fine. Like I always am like trying to have that awareness, because I think sometimes, I mean, I'm really like anti-hustle culture. I know I've just said I did something really fast, but I did it because I enjoyed it. I really think there needs to be more of a focus on what people enjoy and people's mental health and the balance that they need for that. So if you're someone who's like, yes, I want to do all this, and yes, I want to throw myself in, amazing, totally give it a go. But equally, if you're someone sat there thinking, actually, my goal for the year is just to get through the year, like, you know, to just get up, shower regularly and make it through, I'm all down for that as well. And I think that's just as inspiring as like going and starting something.
100%. Now I have been talking your ear off already and haven't even asked the starter question, which I'm sure you've been impatiently waiting for, which is, Saf, what are you currently reading?
I'm reading Mona of the Manor. It's not
Is it the
out yet.
new Armistead Maupin?
Yes, it is
Yes.
indeed. So Tales of the City kind of like guy. It's his new one that comes out next year. I got sent a proof of it. And I've read lots of chunky books recently. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna fancy picking up something that's a bit slimmer. So I started it last night. I'm not that far in, but I'm enjoying it. It's the only one of his I've read. So
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you've got to go into that book having read the whole.
No, because I kind of felt like I could just backtrack. Like I often
That's
do
true.
that.
Yeah.
I'll read like a new book, and then if I like it, I'll go back and read all their backlist.
Right. I've got the first in the series and I've still not got round to it, and I keep hearing things about it. And it's been adapted for Netflix as well, which I didn't realise. And it's meant to be, it's meant to be good. So maybe you can give that a try.
Yeah, give it a go. What are you currently reading?
Oh my gosh, I never get asked. I am currently reading Fourth Wing.
Yes.
Which was not necessarily going to be on my radar. Like, it's just not the book that I would go for. Like, I'm very much like you in the sense that I gravitate towards literary fiction. I will occasionally dabble in like thrillers and some historical fiction, but I don't really branch out a lot, especially not into stuff like fantasy. And is it like called romantasy or something?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So I am 300 pages into that and I am really enjoying it, and I really wasn't expecting it. I was such a snob about it. I was like, I'm definitely not going to love this, and I'm really enjoying it. Like, it's such good like escapism.
I did the exact same thing. So I've read The Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. I read them back to back. So
oh my gosh.
I've luckily finished Fourth Wing, and then literally the next day Iron Flame came out, so I went and got a copy. I would never have thought.
You went and got a copy, what, from your own bookshop?
No, I actually went to another bookshop because I was so desperate to read it. I was like, I want to read it now. I want to be like with
Desperate
everyone else on TikTok with their copies. I got like,
that's what I mean. Like, I got sucked into TikTok.
It was good though. Like, look, it's not the best writing in the world if I had to be like critical of it. And it's cheesy and some of it's silly, but it's fun. Like, I found it, it was easy to read. It was like, it's fantasy, so it's kind of escapism, and it just took me back to my childhood, like when I would be lost in these like other worlds where these kind of magical things are happening, and I loved it. And I'm like really grateful because I feel like it's opened up a new genre for me.
Absolutely.
You know, now I'm like, okay, cool. So then I went on and after I read that, I read The Poppy Wars I've only read the first one in the trilogy so far, by R.F. Kuang, who did Yellowface and Babel. So I did The Poppy War, loved that. I've got the Atlas series to start at some point.
Way. Is that Olivia Blake? Have I made that up?
Yeah, no, that's correct. So I feel like it's kind of opened up a new genre for me, and I'm kind of happy about it because now I've got like another ton of books that I can
love that
branch into.
How many books do you actually read a year, do you think?
This year I think I've read, like, this is the first year I've actually tracked it. So I never normally
Right.
like track it or like anything like that. But this year I was like, oh, I'm gonna do it because I'm kind of intrigued because
Right.
people would ask how much I've read, and I'm kind of like, I don't know. I'm on 118 this year so far.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I think I'm at 60. Not great.
I think it is though. I think that's good. I don't know. I don't really know what
I
what
was aiming for 80 this year because I think I did like 70 last year and I was wanting 80. But normally it's around this time that I'd be reading, and I've been in shows in November and December. So it's just been like rehearsals every day, shows every day. It's just been so full on. But actually that's why it's so great to have been reading Fourth Wing, because normally I can't read when I'm in a show because I've got the script in my head
Yeah.
and feels like I'm using too much of my brain.
Mhm.
And reading Fourth Wing, it's actually been so great, and it's not actually impacted me and my scripts at all. It's just been such a great escape, and it's been really nice to kind of come out of working on a festive show in December and being able to come home and like be in this like mad dragon
Definitely.
land.
Oh my God, I love the dragons. That's my
So
favorite part of
good.
the whole thing.
So good. Right, we are going to get into, I think we should get into our top five of the
Okay.
year. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so we are going to go give you listeners our top five reads of the year, starting from number 5 and running all the way up to our top book of the year. Now, there is still time because I believe that within the Christmas New Year interim, there's plenty of time to squeeze more books in. So I'm going to say this may change in that period, but this is what our top 5 is for now. So, Saf, do you want to start us off with your 5th book?
Yes. Now, I want to caveat this by saying I found this really hard.
Sorry.
I've read like some amazing books this year and I was finding it so difficult. I was like, well, what would qualify as like the top? Is it the ones that I rated the highest? Is it the ones that I thought about the most since? Is it the ones that I've like told other people about enough? Like, is it the ones where I was reading and I kept stopping to tell like my other half what was happening? Like, I don't know. So I found it really difficult. So I was like, okay, I'm going to kind of do a mixture of those. My number 5 is The Glutton by A.K. Blakemore. Loved it. And I chose it as my number 5. So for anyone that doesn't know, The Glutton it's based on a true story about this guy who could eat anything. And it's rumored that he ate a child. And I'm not giving anything away from the storyline with this because that's in the synopsis.
Yeah.
So you know that straight off the bat. And yeah, it's based on a true, I'm doing quote marks because we don't know how true it was. This is back in like I think it's in the 19th century, and it's set in France. So it's like goes through Paris and the countryside. And I was really intrigued by the fact that a guy might have eaten a child, which is quite macabre, but I do quite like dark things.
Yeah.
Actually wasn't really dark at all. It was beautiful, and I loved the kind of scenery and the storytelling, and she's a brilliant writer. And it had to go on the list because it was the book that made me realize that I need to not write off historical fiction, because previous to that I'd always been like, old stuff, boring. Like just felt like it wasn't me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm really glad I read it because I loved it, and it was beautiful. It was just so well written. And I loved the characters. I loved all of definitely the scenery through the like Paris in the 19th century and the countryside. It was just gorgeous. Loved it. Beautiful. And got that weird element to it too.
Was that the author of Man in Tree Witches?
Yes.
Right. Okay. I feel like those two books are so different because I think they're both historical fiction, but there's not really a weird element to. I mean, I've not read Man and Tree Witches, but from what I remember people telling me, I don't think it's got that weird element to it.
I mean, I've not read her original, her debut. I believe that was her debut, but I want to. It's sat on the pile of books that I should read at some point.
I love that. Right, my 5th book in the top 5 is, now I did say to you last night because I panicked and was like, are these going to be books in your choices that are books that have actually come out this year? Is that what you've done?
I think most of mine are, but by chance. I mean, it wasn't a purposeful thing, and I won't judge you. If they didn't come out this year. It just so happens.
I'm judging myself. I'm judging myself. So this one definitely didn't come out this year. I actually don't know what year it came out. Let me see. Oh, 2019. I don't know why I thought it was further back than that. But still, 4 years ago.
What is it? What is it?
Daisy Jones and the Six.
Oh, do you know what? I really didn't like that book.
Oh my gosh. Do you know what though? I was expecting to really not like it.
Mm,
And I think I went into it being like, I'm never gonna like this. So many people raved about it. And so many people that I like really respect and admire, you know, like Dolly Alderton loved it.
mm.
And so I was like, oh, they like it, but I don't think I will. Like I just don't think it'll be my vibe at all. And I read Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. That's the right title, I think. So I was told by everyone that like, oh my God, you're gonna love this. Like it's so amazing. And I read that and I didn't really enjoy it and thought it was like a really beautiful story. But I don't know, it just didn't quite hit for me. So I wasn't kind of willing to give this a try. And it was just sat on my bookshelf for ages. And then I read it and I was like, oh my God, like I fucking loved it. I thought it was so good. And if you're looking at it from a critical perspective, like, yes, okay, maybe there's like lots of flaws to it. But for me, it was just like a really great escapist book. And I felt really wrapped up in that world. Like, I felt like it was really immersive. I loved the style that it was told in, that it was all this kind of like interview style. And I mainly read it because the adaptation came out on Prime. And I really wanted to watch that because everybody was raving about that. And I honestly think like that's one of the best adaptations I've watched. Have you watched it?
No, I'm mainly because I didn't really like the book.
Oh
But
my gosh, you need to watch it.
yeah,
So
maybe
good.
I'll give it a go. And like, no, my one bugbear in like the kind of reading community, I don't like book snobbishness.
Right.
Like, I don't really like. I can appreciate that some books were probably harder to write, perhaps, or are cleverer with the way that they've done something, whether that's the writing style, the plot, the depth of the characters, whatever. But I just, to me, reading it should be fun. Like we should be going and picking up either to learn if you're going for nonfiction. But if we're going to fiction, it should be fun. Like we should enjoy it. We should be able to lose ourselves in it. And I think sometimes people can get a bit like on their high horses and get a bit snobbish about what people read. And they kind of look down about like on stuff. And I don't really love that because I think we should be trying to make reading as accessible as possible to like everybody. And there's different times for different books. Like as long as you enjoy it, then who cares whether it won prizes or it's seen as a good book or an easy book, like whatever. Like so I'm fully down that that's on your list. I love that.
I also think it'd be really great as like a holiday read. But yeah, loved it and would recommend. So that's me. What is on your number 4?
My number 4 is In Ascension by Martin McInnes or McInnes. I don't know how you pronounce it.
I don't know. My pronunciation is so off all the time.
Have you read it?
I have not.
Okay, so I picked this up and I loved it. It was Booker longlisted.
Yeah.
This is the first year I've actually read quite a few Booker books, which usually I don't. I kind of think, it's probably going to be quite hard work if it's been put on the list for the Booker. But I was like, something about this I really liked the sound of. It's kind of like sci-fi. It's got space. It's got deep underwater exploration, but it's also beautiful and it also focuses a lot on relationships. And I just thought it was so clever. Something about this made me really excited for it. And then I read it and I raced through it and I was like, that was amazing. Like I really, really liked it. And I recommend it to people, even if you don't think that you like sci-fi, because it's quite light on the sci-fi, although there is a lot of like science in there, but I'm a massive science geek. So I loved, all these facts. She's kind of like a marine biologist and she's kind of talking about different sea creatures and it was just like, it was like chilling, but it was just so clever, really, really clever. But funny enough, I read another one of his books. So I was like, oh my God, I love it. I'm going to buy his backlist. I can't remember what the name of it was, but it was a white cover. And then it's got a person made of leaves on the front in green.
We can Google that.
Maybe it's like Uncovering something.
Infinite Ground.
Yeah, that's the one. Me. Just, what did I say?
Uncovering.
Idiot. I didn't love it. I found that book really hard work.
No.
It was interesting because both the same author. This one is still like, that one is still strange, like still got that kind of weird element to it. So I was all prepped to be like, I'm going to love this author so much. And then I read it and I was like, it's just not doing anything for me. I don't even think I finished it, which is quite rare for me to be like, I'm not enjoying this enough to not finish it. I'm all for like putting a book down if you don't love it, but it's rare that I don't love something enough to be like, I'm going to give up. And I'm pretty sure I gave up on that because I don't know what's going on. It was too complicated. Like, I felt like he tried to be too clever. And I was like, this book is just making me feel dumb. And like, not like he did it intentionally, but like, it's just no fun because I'm just reading being like, well, what? I don't know. Like, I just don't know what's happening. And I don't know what the point of the book is. Maybe I'll revisit in the future, but In Ascension anyway, amazing. And perhaps if you enjoy that, you'll like his other books. I've still got another one of his to read. Maybe that will like balance things out. Maybe
I hope so. I've got everything crossed for you.
Thanks.
I feel like everyone has been reading the Booker list a lot more this year, and it sounds like there's been a lot of really good books coming out of it. Because normally it feels like the high like literary people are enjoying those books, but not necessarily like across the board. Like commercially, people are enjoying it. How would you describe that?
I mean, it's
describing it like the peasants are enjoying the books, but that's not what I mean. That is really not what I mean. I just mean, your everyday person that's not part of the literary world are enjoying those books. But I'm conscious of saying another one of them in case it's on your list. So I will move swiftly on.
What is your number 4?
My number 4 is Clytemnestra by Costanza Casati. So we interviewed Costanza on the podcast. Have you read Clytemnestra?
No, I've not even heard of it. So please tell me about it.
Okay, so my memory is absolutely shocking. So I will do what I can with this.
Okay.
So this is historical fiction.
Yeah.
And that is all I remember. No, I'm kidding. So it's like a sort of mythical retelling. Is that how you would describe it? Myth retelling? I'm going to basically read the blurb. So it says, they call me mother, monarch, murderer, monster. Here is my tale of how my first husband was murdered by Agamemnon, of how Agamemnon became my second husband, of how he sacrificed our daughter for his war, and of how the seeds of revenge take years to grow their bitter fruit. And then it has this whole like feminist section, which I love, but I want people to read it for themselves because it's in the book, so I don't want to spoil too much. But I wouldn't normally go for a book like this, and I absolutely loved it and thought it was just so incredible. I think this was her debut, which blew my mind anyway, because I was like, how have you come up with this? Like it was just so incredible. And her world building was so brilliant as well. It didn't feel like, I think it's quite hard for me with historical fiction and with myth retellings and books like that I feel so distanced from those books, and I just can't, I want to be immersed in the world of a book in order to enjoy it. And sometimes when I read historical fiction, I can't quite place myself there, but I felt like I was in this world, and it was so dark and so like there was so much death and gory in there, but it didn't feel like far-fetched. It didn't feel like I believed it all. And it's just, she's such a great writer. And she also has another book coming out, and I don't know if it's next year or 2025. I feel like it could be 2025, but I'm really eager to read her next book. And I'm so sorry to Costanza, especially because that was a terrible description of her book. It was just very much me rambling about how much I enjoyed it.
Well, you've intrigued me, so
which is all you need to know.
I'm going to go and have a look.
I loved it.
I mean, I'm really bad for just going, it's really good. I'm always like,
I've just done exactly that.
Talk about a book and I just go, oh, it's really good. I just loved it. And basically I say it's really good in like 5 different ways.
Yeah, or I feel really immersed in it. Yeah, I know.
And then I'm like, I haven't actually told anybody anything, but whatever. It's made us intrigued, and we can go and find out more.
It was on my top 5 for a reason. So it's I did, when I first read it, it was February, and I was like, that's going to be on my top list of the year. So like, if you read that early on in the year and you already kind of know, that's a pretty good sign, I would say.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is Land of Milk and Honey by C. Pam Zhang. Have you read it?
Yes, I have read it. Yes, we had Pam on the podcast. So yes.
So good. I think she's such a talented writer. Really, really good. I saw some people, I think on Instagram, like sharing it, and I was kind of intrigued. I really do love a dystopian book. So it's definitely got that dystopian edge to it. This idea that like the world is kind of falling apart, which kind of actually could be happening in real time, but whatever. And then, yeah, the idea being that she goes and gets a job. So she's a chef and she goes and gets a job on this mountain for these really rich people who are kind of like got the money to not feel the impact as much of all this destruction that's going on, which has basically seen the end of the growth of lots of food. So cooking food has become really hard because there's hardly any produce. That's basically like the gist of it. But then there's also like there's like queer romance in it. There's like all these interesting relationships between the characters. I really loved it. And I knew I really loved it because normally I really hate books about food, like that have loads of descriptions of food. Yeah, I don't like it. I don't know what it is about it. I'm just like, ugh.
I'm the total opposite.
I'm just like, yeah, like, no, not for me. But despite that, and there is a lot of food in it because she's a chef and it plays a big part, still really loved it. So to me, that was like a sure sign that I really, really did enjoy it, because usually I would have been put off by the food aspect of it. But I thought it was clever. I thought it was well written. I thought it was gripping. But yeah, I loved this book. I thought she was, incredible. Thought it was brilliant. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it.
I loved it as well. It's such a good book. And I'm really glad that you said that you like dystopians as well, because I am a big fan of a dystopian. And I think there are so many ways that people can do dystopians wrong, or they aren't believable, or it just feels so ridiculous. And
you have to be good at world building, don't you, to do a dystopian, because it has to be believable. Like, it's got to be enough that you're caught on it, and that there's that element of, oh my god, what are they going to do? Like, the world in some respects need to go to shit for you to like be gripped to the book. Like, if it's too subtle a disaster, then I'm kind of like,
exactly
not enough. But then it needs to be built well enough that you believe that could happen. Like, that feels like such a big part of it. Like, I need to be like hooked on the, oh my god, like, could this happen? Did you read Severance by Ling Ma?
I've not read it yet. It's on my shelf.
Oh, you've got to read it, because that's a really good one where, again, really believable. I wouldn't say it's like, oh, I guess it is. It's not like, oh my god, the world has gone to shit. Like, it is almost subtle, but it's clever. It's really good. You should read it.
I really loved, and this person is a fan of Bodega as well, I really loved Dreamland by Rosa Rankin G.
Oh, I love Rosa. She's an absolute angel.
Yeah, when she came on, she recommended you guys.
Yeah, she's local. Well, she's always traveling and all over the place, but her and her parents are local to Ramsgate. So her mum's also an author, Maggie, and she's done some amazing stuff too. But yeah, Rosa's book has been like number one on our bestseller list since we opened, like a year and a half ago.
Really? Wow. It's so good. Yeah. Loved it. Loved it. Where are we up to?
Your number 3. You haven't done your number 3.
I have not done my number 3. God, we're doing so well. My number 3, and I've just realised actually that it was only Daisy Jones and the Six that wasn't from this year. So I have actually done quite well.
Oh, there you go. So you've done better than you thought you did. You was having a panic for nothing.
That is actually me to a T. Anyway, mine is The Rachel Incident by Caroline O'Donoghue.
I've not read this. No. But I've heard so many people talking about it. I've listened to a couple of podcasts where they like deep dive on it. It sounds really good.
So good. So good. And I actually have memory of this book. So that's
good. strong sign, and helpful for the podcast.
Yeah. Very embarrassing that I don't think I could form a sentence on. I can't form a sentence now. It's just not working for me. But The Rachel Incident is sort of inspired by Caroline's own story of being in her early 20s in Ireland with her gay best friend and the antics that they got up to. So she sort of used that story, and the story of how the Rachel Incident came to be is fascinating to me anyway, because we've recorded a podcast with her, so you can go back and listen to that, but I am going to repeat exactly what she said, which is that she had written something ridiculous, like, I don't even know how many thousands of words she'd written, maybe I'm being dramatic, but something like 60,000 words or something like that. It was like a ridiculous amount of words that she'd written for a book, and she just totally scrapped it and then wrote The Rachel Incident within 6 weeks or something.
Wow.
And it is just incredible, and you can really tell that she'd been sat on this story for a while, that it was something that meant a lot to her. So we have Rachel, and she is in her early 20s, and she's got this best friend, and he is, I'm trying to figure out how much I can give away and how much I can't. No, so she's living with her gay best friend, and they live in Cork, and they work in HMV together. And
old school.
Yeah. And it's sort of about, like, again, all the antics that they get up to, and how like ridiculous life is in your early 20s, and all the mistakes that you make. And she brings in her English lecturer from uni, I think, to do like an author event. No, it's a bookshop, not HMV. It's a bookshop. It's because, so sorry, everyone. I said HMV because they, in real life, they worked at HMV.
Right.
But she put it in a bookshop, so please forgive me. So it was in a bookshop. I was like, why are they doing an author event at HMV? No, that's why. So they do an author event at her bookshop. And she gets him in because she really fancies him. And then I can't reveal much else because it would give away too much. But basically, her English lecturer is married, and it's sort of all the mistakes that you'd make and the ways in which we fail as people. And there's potentially an affair storyline in there somewhere. But who has the affair? Who knows? But yeah, it's so brilliant, and really took me back to like my early 20s and how I just didn't have a frigging clue what I was doing with my life, and was constantly making many mistakes, and didn't know what I wanted from life, didn't know who I was as a person. So it's all that kind of identity and belonging and friendship, and how you navigate those friendships. And it feels like a love story as well. Like, it feels like their friendship is the love story of the book. So it's essentially a romance of their friendship, which I thought was really beautiful. And she's just a phenomenal writer. And it's actually, I have listened to her podcast Sentimental Garbage for years, but it's the first book of hers that I've read. And yeah, I'm just really excited to get to the rest of her work because it's so good. So I'm really excited for you to read this as well.
Yeah, okay. That's again, I'm pretty sure it's on my stack of books somewhere in the house to read. I just get distracted and get excited about another book and then forget.
That's totally fair. And also the rights for this, because I go on about loving adaptations all the time, but the rights for this have been bought by Page Boy Productions, which is Elliot Page's production company. So that is very exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting. Okay, are we on to number 2?
We are on to number 2. Give us your number 2, Sam.
Okay, my number 2 is In Memoriam by Alice Wynne.
Oh, okay.
Have you read it?
I have not read it. It's on my shelf.
Oh, devastating, beautiful. Again, it's got like queer love stories in there, which I always love. It's just so good. She's such a good writer. Like, and again, this is a book I went into and picked it up because quite a few of our customers were coming in and buying it and like talking about it and being like, oh, it's beautiful. And I'm always intrigued. If a book is doing well in the shop, I'm kind of always like, oh, like, you know, get a bit nosy, like, what's everyone excited about? And I want to be able to join in the chat. So I read it and I was thinking, when I started it, I wasn't thinking I was going to love it. And it really took me by surprise. I got so caught up in the story. And I read it kind of back to back, like, you know, the kind of times where you're just so into a book that you don't even want to stop to like eat or like do anything else. You just want to stay in the story. Such good characters, so it's set in the war, and it's kind of like, I don't want to say too much. It's like, I think a queer love story set in the war is enough without, I feel that way I'm not giving away too much of what's going to happen. I still think about it now, and I really want to read it again, and I don't really reread much. Wow. So yeah, it's, I think, forever going to have a place in my heart.
I'm so excited to read it. Wasn't it one of Waterstone's books of the year?
It may have been.
I think so. Although we shouldn't be talking about that when we've got an indie bookshop.
Yeah, can you not? Podcast. Please, no, I'm joking.
So sorry. But we will have a link in the show notes for this podcast. We'll have a link for Book Bodega, so everyone can buy all of their recommendations from the lovely South.
Thank you so much.
Okay, number 2.
What's your number 2?
Number 2 is, and I'm so excited about this book, and I want everybody to read it. Everybody. It is Shark Heart by Emily Harbeck. Have you read it?
No.
Oh my God, Saf, you will absolutely
Okay,
love
show me the
this.
cover. Show me the cover because that's a really nice cover as well.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay, what's it about?
Right, listen, you will love this. So, the best way to describe it is that it gives the sort of vibes, similar vibes to Our Wives Under the Sea, which I
Loved.
loved. Yes.
Mm.
Okay, so already I know you'll love it. So, it is set a few weeks after the wedding of this couple. They're called Lewis and Ren. And this isn't giving anything away because it says all of this on the blurb. But Lewis starts to have these weird symptoms, and he gets the diagnosis that he is becoming a great white shark. And it sounds so ridiculous. And I remember we had Emily on the podcast and we got sent this, and I remember being sent the pitch and I was like, this is so like, I don't what like, but it's set in a world where like these diagnoses of people becoming animals are becoming more and more frequent. And I was like, there's no way on this earth that I'm going to believe this. But I actually believed it so much. Like I felt
Yeah.
it just felt so real to me. And the way that Emily manages to like ground you in the story, her like this is a debut again, no idea how. And I really love multiple POVs when it's done well.
Mm.
And this was told between Lewis and Ren. He is like a failed actor. So I loved that anyway, because I'm not a failed actor. I'm an actor. So I get the whole like, feeling really frustrated. But then he goes from being this failed actor to like morphing into a shark, and you're like, how do you kind of go about that? So it had sort of really similar vibes to Our Wives Under the Sea, in that the person you love is completely changing before your eyes, and you're so in love with them, and it's so ridiculous and absurd, but you love them. And it's like, I felt the same with Our Wives Under the Sea, in that like these really horrifying things were happening to Leah, and Miri kind of doesn't act in this kind of dramatic way that you would expect somebody to react. She just kind of goes, right, okay, so your eyes just fell out of your face. How do we go from, well, like, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
And it's not it's such a different reaction that you would expect from a person. And I feel like I'm not a romance person, but those are the kind of romances that I will happily read and enjoy and believe, because
It's so good. I
so
really want to
good.
read this. Like,
I
I'm
want
like
you to read
gonna
this.
order this today because
Yay!
I always say I love weird and wonderful books. So anything that's, as long as they're done well. But this sounds, if you can.
It's so weird and wonderful.
I'm really intrigued. Do you know what? It's given me, what's the film? What's his face? Colin, is his name Colin?
Colin Firth?
No, the guy that does In Bruges, the Irish guy. And there's the lobster. The film where if you don't find someone to love, then you turn into an animal. Let me Google this because I want to check if this
No, I want to watch this film.
Colin Farrell, that's his name, isn't it?
Yeah. Colin Farrell, yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's this. Yeah. In a futuristic world, single people are taken to the hotel to find a lover within a span of 45 days. However, the hotel has a condition if they fail to find a partner. And the condition basically is that you'll turn into an animal.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard of this.
Yeah. So it's really given me vibes to Shark Heart, like similar idea, but visual instead. So definitely watch that. You can watch that over the Christmas period. Watch that. But it's very weird, but good.
This is so weird, but like it's done so well, and it is completely devastating. Like, you've read the blurb, you know what's coming, so it's not like, oh, it's a surprise that he's going to turn into a great white shark.
Oh my god, is he going to be swimming off in the ocean? And I'm like crying my eyes out.
I don't cry at books. I find it really hard to cry, and I was like so emotionally unstable reading this book. It's so beautiful. So please read it.
Okay, no, 100%. That is 100%. I'm going to read that.
It's time. It's time to give your top book of the year.
Okay, so I'm going to caveat this. This is my number one.
Okay.
But I did read it quite recently. It's not the last book I read. I've read a few books in between, but it was within the last month that I read it. So I don't know if that's why it's still so much in my mind, right? Like,
Right.
part of me is like, am I going to still feel that was number one of 2023 once we're in like March next year? So I don't know. It could change. I know it's definitely going to be in my top 5, but whether it will still be at the top, I don't know. So I'm going to caveat with that. So my number one is The Bee Sting by Paul Murray.
Oh my gosh, this is why I didn't mention it earlier, because everyone seems to be reading that. Oh my gosh, I've not read it and I really, really want to.
I feel like, yeah, if you love family sagas and
Yeah.
you love like marriages and kind of like watching just like relationships between people unfold, whether that's good or bad, brilliant. It's so well written and really clever. And it's kind of questioning whether, you know, does one thing set off a chain of events of all these other things, right? Like it's like kind of like, it's got multiple POVs done really well. And yeah, at the end, I was literally like being like, no, oh my God, like literally like out loud, while my other half was just like, do you mind? Like, can you not? Whereas I'm like, oh my God, you don't understand. Yes, so good. It really kind of blew me away. I loved it so much. I wish I could read it again for the first time.
And which Paul won the Booker?
The one that won the Booker was Prophet Song, which is Paul Lynch, I think.
Paul Lynch, that's the one. And there was apparently a hashtag going around saying like the wrong Paul, because everybody wanted the Bee Sting to win.
I do feel like this should have won, but
Right.
I mean, personally, like I just feel really sorry for Paul Lynch if like people are saying that. Like,
it is really sad.
I feel like, imagine like if that was me and everyone was saying the wrong Sapphire on a hashtag, I'd literally I'd be at home crying.
Oh yeah, me too.
I'd literally be like, oh, people don't like
I mean,
me.
I've not read Prophet Song, so I can't comment, but I know that people felt very strongly about the Bee Sting. And yeah, I need to order that ASAP.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I feel like it'll be right up your street. Like it is really good. And again, I went into it thinking, you know, I wasn't completely sold on it.
Right.
I knew other people were really loving it, and I was like, okay, well, I want to read it because I'm intrigued, because I'm seeing quite strong reactions about it. And especially, so I read it after Prophet Song was announced as the winner. And I've not read Prophet Song. I'm actually not that fussed. Don't really like the look of it. So yeah, I knew that it like hadn't won, and I was seeing this kind of like loads of people being like, no, it should have won, blah, 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 blah. So I was like, okay, I need to read this and see like what the kind of hype is about and why people are so frustrated. And yeah, I mean, I really liked it.
Stunning.
Oh, so good.
I need to read that ASAP. Okay. My top book of the year is out on the 18th of January. And
okay, so you've got your top book of the year as a book that's not out till next year.
Yes,
minx.
I know. I'm so sorry, but I felt that I had to do this.
Okay.
One, because I genuinely adored it so much, but there is 1,000% an element of bias in this, because it is one of my best friends who has a book coming out in January.
Okay.
It's The Knowing by Emma Hines. And this is the proof. It's gorgeous.
Oh, that's pretty. Yeah, that's
really... She got a box of hardbacks delivered yesterday, and the cover is just insanely gorgeous.
Oh, amazing.
So it's historical fiction.
Yeah,
it's 19th century, and it's set between New York and Manchester. So already I was excited about it, because I'm from Manchester, and I feel like there's definitely not a lot of books set in Manchester. I feel like it's not represented as much, and I bloody love Manchester. And I love anywhere set in New York, because any book set in New York, because I just think New York I'm so cringe, but like New York is such a magical place, and I just love it. And this is sort of doesn't romanticize New York at all. It's set in like the criminal underworlds of New York and Manchester. And so it's based on this woman, and it is a woman that is it's a tattooed woman who Emma found an image of and was like, I've already got an idea of a story for this person. So it's a real woman that existed who was like tattooed from head to toe. And then Emma came up with this person's backstory. So it's based on this woman. She's a tattooist, And the reason she tattoos herself is because of trauma and the experiences that she's had. So it does tackle a lot of difficult subjects in the book. You know, there is trauma in there. There is things like, you know, sexual assault, and it's not an easy read. It is quite hard hitting, but Emma is an incredibly sensitive writer and takes great care in the way that she tells that story and the way that she talks about these things. So you immediately feel taken care of as a reader, which I think is really important. And I don't want to give too much away because obviously it's not out yet, but this girl kind of she's sort of a lone wolf, and she's taken under the wing of all these different this group of misfits, and they all have their own stories. And it's about like hate and love and betrayal and loss and all these different subjects that we feel very much sucked into. Like so I want everybody to read it, and she's gonna hate me because she's like, why are you butchering talking about my book? But I just love it so much.
I'm intrigued. I'm really intrigued.
It's so good, and it's out on the 18th of Jan. So I want everybody to buy a copy because it's so good, so good. Yeah, that is my top 5. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay, I like the mix there. That was
there is a big mix. I feel like I thought we'd have quite similar books, but I think yours have been very literary.
Yeah, I've come off looking quite literary.
You massive literary snob.
And I'm not. This is what I'm intrigued.
No, you're absolutely not.
I will read pretty much like anything, you know, like I'm not. Yeah, I'm down for anything that. But I think I like the sound of. I'm like, oh, okay.
It's a good sign if 2 of your choices have been ones off the booker list when you're not a person that would ordinarily gravitate towards those books. So that's a good sign for people to actually read the booker list from this year.
Yeah, I think for me it's been a real year of like exploration book wise. Like I've read more fantasy, I've read historical fiction, like I've read more booker books. Like I've really kind of pushed myself outside of my comfort zone, because often I would have been like almost like the opposite of snobbish with things like the booker. I'd be like, oh, that's going to be too hard for me.
Yeah.
And really trying to, and just like really watching like what customers are buying and really taking recommendations from people. So if people are like, this was amazing, like I'm obsessed, I will give it a go and sort of, try new things. So it's been an interesting mix. There was also like I did have an honorary mention.
I was just about to say that I wasn't telling you, but you were getting some honorable mention.
Oh yeah.
You beat me to it.
I've got 2. One is Fourth Wing, which we've already talked about, so I won't go like super into it, but essentially just like I feel like it has to have an honorary mention because it's opened up a world of like fantasy for me. And for that I'm kind of really grateful. Like that was a real escapism for me and given me a whole new genre to kind of explore. And the other one is non-fiction, and it's Bitch, A Revolutionary Guide to Sex, Evolution and the Female Animal by Lucy Cook. It's so good. I mean, I do love non-fiction. I read quite a lot of non-fiction. I don't think I started out I think I got to like halfway through the year and I was literally like 50-50 in terms of fiction and non-fiction and what I'd read. Right. It's now heavier on fiction for the second half of the year, but it was really good. It's so clever and so interesting, but it also made me laugh out loud at loads of points. That. And I spent the entire book, literally spent the whole time tapping my other half and being like, listen to this, and then telling him like this incredible fact about an animal, or reading a really funny bit to him, to the point he was like, literally he had to ask me to stop, and he was like, enough now, like I will
give it a rest.
If I want to read it, I'll read it. Like he does read, but he was like, I'm doing things, I'm trying to watch TV, I'm listening to this podcast, I'm trying to sleep, and I'd be like,
you're like, no.
Wake up, you just have to, this is crazy. So I feel like it needed an honorary mention because it was so good, and it was so well written. Like I love a book that teaches you so much but is easy to read, and the fact that it could also make me laugh and she could be playful with it was really clever. And I don't think nonfiction is that easy to do. Like I think people think it is, but actually reading something that you race through and that you really enjoy is hard. Like yes, a book can teach you something. Like I mean, I have to read a load of academic stuff for uni, but I don't necessarily enjoy reading it because it's dry. It's dry, it's hard work. Whereas writers that are able to write a really good nonfiction where you just like, oh, this is so good, is actually really hard. And this did it very, very, very well.
I will have to give that a try.
It's good.
I'm always looking out for. I definitely don't read enough nonfiction, so I'm always looking out for ones that might get me into nonfiction. It's so hard to find, some of that I think I've read a couple of nonfictions that were quite dull, and it just put me off entirely. And I need to learn not to kind of tarnish everyone with the same brush, because I've done that before with historical fiction and been like, oh, I don't like historical fiction because of this book. And it's like, well, no, that's not how it works.
My top 4 off the top of my head that I've these are all either last year or the year before, I think, but that really stick out to me. Bitch, obviously, which I've mentioned. Behind Closed Doors by Polly Curtis. That's it. Right. I knew her name was Polly, but I couldn't remember her surname, because another book I'm going to mention is by Polly as well. So good. Is looking at the care system in the UK, and like the points of view of all the different people. So like people who have to interact with the care industry, and then all the way up to people that are in charge of the way that the care system works and runs. Fascinating. Again, really well written. She interviews lots of different people, and it's insightful and it's interesting, and I read it so quick. And yeah, I mean, it's so good. I mean, I particularly loved it, but yeah, I then went and got a job working with children in care off the back of that book, because I enjoyed it so much and it sparked my interest. And now I'm doing a social work degree, which again, I owe to reading that book and enjoying it so much and being like, okay, things need to change. So yeah, loved it. Really good. Porn by Polly.
I knew you were going to mention that.
Really good.
Yeah.
Really just interesting. I think we need more books that are about women's sexuality, where we just speak to women about sex and their sexual lives, and rather than feeling like women aren't sexual because we are, or are only sexual because we're sexual for others, rather than because we want to be. So love that. That's really good. I read Wasteland. I can't remember the author, but Wasteland was really good. Sorry, I hadn't planned to mention these, but
that is absolutely fine. No, give me all the recommendations. I love it. Wasteland that is definitely not it. I don't know why.
Oliver, I found it. Oliver Franklin Wallace. And it's looking at like what happens with our waste. And it's really fascinating. Like I learned so much from that book. It was brilliant. And then I also loved Ultra Processed People, The Science Behind Food That Isn't Food by Chris Van Tulleken. Amazing. Again, another book where this book particularly, just like Bitch, I spent the whole time tapping Nick and being like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, can you believe it? This is crazy. Like, absolutely crazy. Like I just couldn't. Oh my God, I learned so much, and it was absolutely fascinating. Loved it. So
many good recommendations.
The last one I want to mention, because it's another one that I think is really important, so Behind Closed Doors, really important. Bitch, really important in terms of science and our knowledge of evolution and women and females, is Tenants by Vicky Spratt is her name. Yes, that's it. Brilliant book that's looking at the kind of like rent system and basically the housing crisis that we're in, and how we got here and how we might change it, and the reality of what it's actually like. And again, read it so fast and really, really enjoyed it. And it's another crucial one where I'm like, that actually has information that we all need to know so that we can do something about it. So that's some of my, off the top of my head, they're the ones that like I still really think about and really, really loved.
Love that. I cannot believe how long we've already been talking for.
I know.
Insane. But I'm even thinking now, like, should this be like a part 1, part 2 Christmas special?
Sorry, I do waffle. That does
happen. You and me both. So this is like a match made in heaven, but also maybe not. We need to get on to our festive part of the episode. So for that, I have, thank you.
Perfect.
So I'm ready. No, I'm actually going to take this off.
Are you meant to be an elf or what?
It's supposed to be an elf, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I worked in school at the start of the year, so this is at the start of the year.
It's very cute. I love it.
Yeah, it was very cool. I think your bow looks a lot better, so I'm going to take it off.
I've gone quite subtle, if I'm honest.
I have gone, with the snowflake earrings as well.
Lovely.
So we've got, what is the word I'm looking for? I've got no words to use today.
Spirit of Christmas?
In the spirit of Christmas. Let's say that. In the spirit of Christmas, we are going to use the spirits of A Christmas Carol, the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and yet to come, but in the bookish sense. So
Okay.
we're playing on that. Saf,
Yes.
who is your ghost of Christmas past, which is a book that haunts you?
Well, you told me this, and I was like, I don't know if she means like, I was like, oh, how literal does she mean?
However you want to take it is
Because
fine.
you know, that's the thing that us autistics are always thinking, like, do they actually mean that? Like, are they actually asking if I was born in a barn, or are they, you know, I don't know. So I was like, okay, I think it's a book that like stays with me, a book that
Okay.
like so I was thinking it's either got to be like a bad book that it haunts you because it's bad, or it like haunts you because it was hauntingly written.
However
So
you want to take that.
I took it for the latter, and I went with A Little Life by Hannah Yangahara. I'm not a good pronunciator, so I'm really sorry if I messed up.
Absolutely fine.
Because that book still stays with me because it was so sad. I mean, amazing. I gave it 5 out of 5. I went and saw the play with James Norton that was adapted into. I was like all in on it, but devastating. Like, oh my god, just the most heartbreaking novel that I've ever read. And I'm just so in love with Jude and Harold especially, and that just stays with me, and I think about it often. So I feel like that counts as being haunted by it.
And Willem is genuinely one of my favorite ever characters. So I like that. Now mine, funnily enough, is also by Hanya Yanagihara. And I went with a book that haunts me because I hated it so much.
Is it In Paradise?
No, I love To Paradise. To Paradise is my favorite.
I hated that one.
No, Saf, please. No.
So The People in the Trees.
Oh my gosh, hated it so much.
I've not read that one yet.
Awful, don't bother.
Oh no, but then you like To Paradise, and
it's so weird. No, I loved To Paradise and I loved A Little Life. I don't know what happened with The People in the Trees. It was her debut and it was awful. Like, and who am I? Like, she's a phenomenal writer, so I don't know what went wrong. But this
is intriguing. Okay, so now I feel like I need to go away and read this and come back to you because we're both agreed on one and we've disagreed on another. So I'm intrigued of where we'd land on the third.
Where we'd land on that one.
Yeah. Do you know what? Going to be in agreement?
We spoke about this on I think it must have been like our first ever episode, but we said that it was the footnotes. There's like, it's the weird thing about The People in the Trees is that it's sort of a book within a book. So it's like a non-fiction book within a fiction book, and it's the character is writing this book about this group of people. I can't remember what group of people, but it's set somewhere, and it's like there's footnotes on each page, and like some of the footnotes are like a whole page,
and you have to read. Is it a book where you have to read the footnotes?
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't like, it's taking me out of the story too much because you're a novel, but you're trying to tell me this non-fiction story, but there's too much going on, and I just felt completely lost, and I ended up getting so like bored of it. So that is a book that haunts me, and I am so sorry to our Lord and Savior Hanya Yanagihara because I absolutely love her.
Yeah, okay, right. I'm gonna read that over the Christmas break and come back to you because I'm.
Oh, please don't! It might ruin your Christmas.
Never.
Please tell me what you think. Okay, your ghost of Christmas present, which is a book that you want to gift to people or gift to everyone.
So I went with Conversations on Love by Natasha Lunn.
I've not read this yet.
Beautiful. I think of it as like a grown-up version of Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderson. So Everything I Know About Love is lovely, and it's about female friendships and love and etc. etc. But I do always think it's quite young. Like, I think it's that's probably a really good present for people like late teenage, your early 20s. Like, that will hit perfect because it's that time in your life. But Everything I Know About Love, Conversations on Love by Natasha Lunn. And initially she had, I don't know if she still does the newsletter, but it started as a newsletter that did amazingly. And then she's ended up releasing a book, and it's just beautiful. It's like all these different interviews with people about all different kinds of love. So familial love, like romantic love, friendship, all these different parental, like all these different kind of like types of love and ways of loving and lessons learned. And it's just one of those books that is just perfect for like basically everybody. Like, it's such a universal thing that we all experience, I hope, love in some form. And it kind of puts all the different kinds of love as just as important as each other. rather than putting like romantic love on a pedestal as numero uno. Love it. It's a book that you can give to anyone, and it makes like a really beautiful present.
I really want to read this. I've been holding out hope that I'm going to find it in a charity shop one day.
Just buy it. Just buy
I
it.
should just buy it, shouldn't I? No, but I have this whole thing where I am so determined to find specific books in a charity shop, and that's one of them. So I will just have to buy it at this point. So mine is, I was stuck on this one.
Okay.
So I originally wrote down Notes on a Nervous Planet by Matt Haig. And I know that most people's go-to would be Reasons to Stay Alive, but I suffer with anxiety and had a really, really bad bout of anxiety and like a really big dip in my mental health in 2021, I want to say. And that's when I went on anxiety medication because it had got too much. And that is one of the books that I picked up at the time, and it massively helped me. And I feel like Reasons to Stay Alive is a great book. I really respect Matt Haig, and I know that different people feel differently about him, but I personally really like him. And I love both of those books. But Reasons to Stay Alive is very much about struggling with depression and about, helping a person to think about the positive things in the world and, ultimately give somebody hope that there are things, worth keeping on for. Notes on a Nervous Planet helped me because it felt specific to anxiety and specific to my own struggles. And I also think that even if somebody isn't,
I feel like it's a bit more generalized, isn't it? I feel like if you give Reasons to Stay Alive, you're saying you are mentally unwell and I think you need this.
Yes.
You'd have to be,
exactly.
It'd have to be like a certain person that's going to understand the way in which you intended it. Yes. Whereas like Notes on a Nervous Planet is also generally looking at like anxiety that's affecting all of us.
Everybody struggles with anxiety, and it doesn't need to be somebody that is on medication for it or somebody that heavily suffers with it. Everybody gets anxiety at some point in their life. So it feels very specific to everybody. And I think that's, quite a talent to have achieved that. And it really helped me at a time in my life when I needed it the most. And I had held off on reading it up until that time. And I think it'll resonate with so many people for so many different reasons. I just think it's very important in that sense. So I would really recommend that, and I would gift that to people. I also toyed with saying Love and Saffron by Kim Fay. Have you read that?
No.
It's a gorgeous book, and it completely flew under the radar. And it's a novel, and how it's told is between like letters between these two women, and they don't know each other, and I can't remember how they come to writing letters to each other, but it's about like love and friendship and heartbreak and food as well. And I don't know if it's like they accidentally send a letter to each other, but then they end up becoming really good friends, but they're from completely different worlds. And it is just a really, really gorgeous story and really heartwarming. And I think like this time of year when like a lot of people are feeling lonely or they're feeling low, or people find it quite sad, and for multiple reasons people like grieve at this time of year, this is just a kind of book that I found really uplifting without being cheesy or without, it's not trying to do too much. It just is this really profound book because it is. So I would definitely give this to somebody, and I feel like not enough people have read it, so that would be mine. Okay, what is your Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, which is an author that you want a book from in the near future?
See, this one I found really hard. This was the one I got stuck on because I was like, because then I was like, well, I don't know. Like, I don't know that I particularly have one author that I'm waiting on, because I don't really have one author who's like my favoriteest ever author. I don't even really have a favorite book. Like, I have favorites from the year, but I'm always like, people are like, what's your favorite? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know, it changes all the time. So I landed on, I actually had two people, which is cheating a bit, but I just didn't know. So I won another one from R.F. Kuang.
Okay.
So obviously Yellowface, Babel, The Poppy Wars. She is just really talented, like across the board. Like she's done multiple different types of books, and they've all been brilliant. So I am excited for what she does next, because I'm just intrigued. I feel like she's got so much skill that it'll be really interesting to see what she does, and I know I'm going to like it because I've liked everything despite them being different. And then the other one, Jen Began, who did Big Swiss.
Yes, love
I
Big Swiss.
I really liked Big Swiss. I thought that the relationship between the characters was so interesting, and I just found the book really interesting because not a whole lot happens, and it's so good and meaningful and also funny, and that's being adapted too, isn't it? The person that's adapting it, I can't remember her name, so I do apologize if she happens to listen to this. She come into the shop and I was like really excited.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she was like working on the adaptation, and I was like, oh,
And
that's
it's
so
Jodie
cool.
Comer, isn't it? It's Jodie Comer that's going to be in it.
Yeah, also
Cannot
love
wait.
her.
Same.
Amazing. Yeah, so I really loved that, and I just thought it was brilliant. So I'm really intrigued to see whether she's going to release more books and whether it's going to hit the spot. But what about you? What's your Christmas
Yet to
coming?
come.
Yeah, that's the one I was like,
I am going to be such a basic bitch, and I really want a
okay.
book from Sally Rooney.
Okay.
I'm waiting for another Sally Rooney really impatiently. I thought we were going to get one this year, but apparently not. And I've been holding out hope that there's going to be one next year, but there's been nothing mentioned
Yeah, I
yet.
haven't heard anything yet. But
So,
I also think they could end up like dropping something and like not giving tons of warning, because I think everyone's going to be going obsessed, and they'll probably
exactly.
publishers will get tons of people being like, I
They
want to
can
proof,
do
I want to
that.
proof.
They can do that with her. Like it's like Beyonce dropping an album like tomorrow and just being like surprise, and like everyone would just download it and it would, be huge regardless. So I feel like Sally Rooney can kind of do what she wants in that sense. So yeah, I am
Defo.
very excited for a new book from Sally Rooney, and that is what I want. Let us talk about books that are coming next year that you think should be on everybody's pre-order list for next year. So,
Okay.
Saf, what books are you excited for 2024, or what books do you think everybody should be reading next year?
Okay, so I've gone with the ones that I'm most excited for, and there's three that I'm really excited about. I'm sure there's going to be more, but currently on my radar are these three. Sandwich by Catherine Newman.
Nice.
So Catherine Newman wrote We All Want Impossible Things, with the yellow cover, and it was beautiful. And oh my God, I just thought that was such an incredible novel, such a brilliant debut as well. And just the way she talks about grief and friendship. And yeah, I just thought it was a brilliant, brilliant book. I really, really loved it. So she's got a new one coming out. I think it's the 6th of June next year. So it's not for a while, but I know that I've got proof on the way. So I'm very, very excited. It just sounds really, really brilliant. It's kind of like family. I think it's in Cape Cod, the idea of sandwich being that she's sandwiched between like her parents and her children and all her family around her. So yeah, it sounds really interesting. It sounds different to the last one, but really good. The second one I'm really excited for is Nuclear Family by Kate Davies.
Oh my gosh, I love Kate Davies. In at the Deep End was her debut.
Hilarious.
I love that.
And so good.
And so raunchy.
Yeah, like spicy, funny, just really good. Yeah, and it was like a queer rom-com of sorts. And I loved it. So she's got a new one, Nuclear Family, coming out 24th of Feb by HarperCollins. Yeah, this one, I'm not sure like whether it's, I'm just intrigued. I really loved it at the Deep End. I recommend it to loads of customers. And it's always kind of stuck on my mind since I read it a few years ago. So I was kind of really excited when I saw her name pop up. I was just like, oh, she's finally doing another one. Like, that's great. Because she kind of like, did this, and then I didn't hear anything else from her. So that I'm really excited for. And then the last one I'm really excited for is Small Hours by Bobby Palmer.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I forgot about this.
Yes.
I cannot wait.
That comes out 14th of March. Again, I'm pretty sure Bobby said he's going to send me over a proof. He's waiting for the next batch to be printed, which I'm really excited about because I can't wait till March. And that's published by Headline. And Isaac and the Egg was so good, so weird, so good, so brilliant, like just really strange, but really beautiful, and I just loved it. I kind of loved that weird little egg thing. I thought it was brilliant, and I'm really excited to kind of see what Small Hours will be like and see where I'll go with it, because it could go anywhere after Isaac and the Egg.
Love that. There's so many goodies on there. And like I said before, I'll be popping a link in the show notes for people to pre-order those. They can pre-order those from you, can't they?
They can indeed.
Well, there we go. Now, I have also got to squeeze in this question because I heard through the grapevine that there is a new Bookish podcast on the horizon. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that?
Yes, I do. So I am launching a podcast. It actually goes live tomorrow when we're recording this. So it actually goes live Wednesday, the 20th of December.
Oh my God.
So by the time this episode comes out, I believe it will be out in the world.
It will be.
Yeah, it's called Novel Thoughts. It's with myself, and then I've got two co-hosts, Joseph and Michelle, and we're all very obsessed with books. And we kind of get together once a week and deep dive on different books. We take turns choosing them. And then we also share lots of recommendations in terms of what we've been reading. And we have listeners calling in, asking for recommendations. It's fun. It's very fun. And I've always wanted a book podcast. So I'm real excited.
I'm so excited to listen as well. And I think it's so cool that there's three of you doing it, and you weren't friends beforehand, were you?
No, I know both of them through the bookshop. So I've never, like, before this, we'd never really hung out aside from the times they'd come in to buy books and chat about books. Right. But I put a call out for like a pod wife or a pod husband or a pod person. And they were both really interested in doing it. And then I kind of thought, okay, actually could be really beneficial being like local, because we could actually meet up and it would get me out of the house because I don't leave my house very often. Such a homebody. So yeah, I mean, I love it. It's really fun. And yeah, I've had a great time so far recording. So I'm just excited for it to go out into the world.
I can't wait to listen. And I can pop a link to that in the show notes, can't I?
I think so.
Gorgeous. Well, they can all find a link to your podcast in our show notes, which is very exciting. Sapphire, thank you so much for joining me for this Christmas special. There was lots more festive questions I could have chucked in there, but I think we just got so lost in the books, which it wouldn't be a Bookish podcast if that didn't happen.
Totally. Oh, thank you for having me. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas, everybody. And Happy New Year, because this will be our last episode until January. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Sapphire, if they want to follow you, where can they find you?
Multiple places, really. You can either find me on Book Bodega or the Coven Girl Gang. I often post more kind of like about my journey, and Book Bodega is more about like just books.
Gorgeous. And listeners, as always, if you do enjoy this episode, please don't forget to rate, review and subscribe, as it helps to boost us in the charts. And you can follow us at A Pair of Bookends Pod on Instagram and at A Pair of Bookends on Twitter and TikTok. But that is all we've got time for. Have the most gorgeous Christmas. I hope it's full of books and you get all of the best books under your tree, and not, I don't know, some what's a really horrible book to get under your tree?
I don't know, but hopefully
people in the trees.
Hopefully they kept the receipt. So
yeah. Well, thank you so much for listening, and goodbye.
Bye.